Where you find that they look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. It's that moment again where we serve you all the offerings on the major newspapers in Nigeria. And as usual, we would begin with the Daily Trust, which has quite a number of offerings on its front page. But the major one, Kaduna Abuja train attack, bandit negotiator, Mamu nabbed over 2 billion naira ransom, racketeering. This is a big one. He has links with Egyptian terror group, according to security sources. We have him in our custody. This is coming from the Department of State Security, or State Services as they would prefer to be called. Release of our loved one threatens. This is according to relatives, and how Mamu family were picked yesterday. The media was besieged with the story of his arrest in Egypt and eventual repatriation to Nigeria. And moving on to other stories directly below the nameplate. Ayu Walid Jibrin, no fate, as PDP holds NEC meeting today. You'll find the details of that on page 30. Buhari won't withdraw Rex nomination. This is according to the federal government. This you'll find on page 8. ISWAP attack, fleeing Boko Haram fighters. ISWAP attack fleeing Boko Haram fighters in Borno. I'm not sure whether we should be happy about this or, well, they seem to be taking up arms against themselves. And then you have this very bold, very beautiful picture on the front page of the management of the Media Trust Group, celebrating different categories of its staff, 45 of them in number, who were honored for integrity, excellence, and long service award, with some of them cutting home long service award for 20 years of service. That is commendable. And then we have there in the editor picks column, APC Tinubu yet to unveil manifesto, 20 days to campaign. You'll find the details of that on page 30. FG orders sanction of foreign airlines selling tickets in dollars. That is the dollarization of the Nigerian economy. I think there are also schools in Nigeria today that charge in dollars. Bandit released 43 adopted Zamfara worshippers. Kill one. These are the major headlines on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories, this time on the Punch newspaper. And the lead headline there says, massive crude theft. Angry oil workers blame soldiers. Protest today. And then you find all the subsequent headlines right there saying Pangasin protests to hold in Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Warri. Union threatens to stop oil production if theft persists. You'd also see federal government to retrieve arrested vessel, captain honor to face prosecution. And then you find other stories there. There's a pictorial there that shows you members of the Ogun State So Safe Corps during a security training in conjunction with the Nigerian Police Force, Ogun State Police Command in Yoa South, Ogun State, which was held on Wednesday. You'd also find other political stories right at the top, where you'd see Atiku meets presidential aspirants, PDP NEC holds today. SANU rejects 23.5% pay rise, state varsities kick. And on page 22, you'll also see the story about federal government to penalize airlines selling tickets in dollars. And on page 19, right at the top, Nigeria plans increased gas exports to Europe 2022. And then just below the pictorial there, the members of the Ogun State Safe Corps, you'd see the story about constituency projects go up 700 billion, telemedicine center faulty. And you'd see the story about Kwara principal allegedly defiled 7 female pupils, absconds. That's quite an interesting story you would like to have a look at. And on page 10, Osun government elect assembles 52 lawmakers for tribunal battle. These are the major stories of the Punch.
And we move on to this Nigeria. The major headlines there stays with political activities in the country. PDP, IU faces heat. South North National Working Committee members stage walkout during meetings, insist on his resignation. We also have a beautiful picture there of a cross-section of army officers with dignitaries at the Nigerian Army Finance Corps at the 13th Biennial Training Conference in Lagos yesterday. With other stories besides the name marks, the FG orders Nka to sanction foreign airlines selling tickets in dollars. Fidelity Bank seeks fresh funds via private placement. You'll find the details of that on page 15. Why we arrested train kidnapped victims negotiator, Tuku, DSS. 2023, 1 million Lagosians abandoned PVC across INEC offices, says REC. You'll find the details of that on page 6. We are not afraid of bullets, bombs. LP tackles Enugu attackers. This will be the Labour Party in response to a trending video over offices that were attacked in the southeast. IPOP deny violent attack on obese supporters in the coal city. These are the major headlines on the front page of this Nigeria.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. And the Nation seems to have quite a different approach to some of the stories on their paper this morning. You see the story about PDP crisis, uncertainty over Yocha Ayu's fate. And you see just below that, Atiku hosts presidential aspirants from South, Judgment Day coming, says Wike. Or your governor, no retreat, no surrender. And you'd find other stories as well. Tinubu, we are determined to turn Nigeria's fortune around. No rift between party chair and I, says APC presidential candidate. And you'd find other stories right at the top. Two brothers confess to chopping off father's hand to rustle cow. Well, someone asked, what is the world turning into? You'd like to read that story on the Nation newspaper. You'd also find other stories saying Abuja Kaduna trained hostage negotiator in DSS custody. Mamu flown back from Cairo. And then on page 7, why Nigeria can't meet OPEC quota. Akeredolu, why Amotekun must carry arms. These are some of the major highlights on the Nation newspaper this morning.
And moving on quickly to the Nigerian News Direct, we have the headline slightly away from political activities. FG to sanction foreign airlines over ticket fare in dollars. Foreign airlines remitted over $600 million to home countries in 2016, according to Hadi Sirika, Minister of Aviation, says $1.1 billion was made from Nigeria in 6 years. That's quite huge. It's a chunk of that money should be staying back home if we had our own local carriers flying to other parts of the world. They repatriate some, we bring back some. And then there you will also find FG pays 103 billion naira subsidy to keep uniform petrol prices for 9 months. This is according to NAMPRA. Parking levy controversy, new provision lawful will eliminate indiscriminate collection. This is according to the Lagos State government. And right above the name marks, we have Pangasin threatening industrial action over spates of oil theft and vandalism. Payments of 5% excise duty beyond ministerial directive. This is according to Budget Office. And state supervised jungle justice reason for unknown gunmen. This is coming for Huriwa. Huriwa is the Human Rights Writers Association. These are the major headlines on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
Okay, let's see what's happening on First News. The lead headline there says federal government planning Igboho Kanu treatment for me. Bandits negotiator cries out. And then you'd see arrested alongside family members in Egypt, repatriated back to Nigeria after 24-hour detention, grilling by Interpol. Arrested again by DSS on arrival at Kano Airport. Whisked away to Abuja, clamped in detention. Mamu has questions to answer. He's a person of interest, says DSS. And you find other stories as well, right at the top. Atiku meets PDP presidential aspirants, Wike absent. Fresh fuel scarcity looms as Pangasin threatens nationwide strike. Plans to shut down installations over oil theft. And then you see other stories. The one about why PDP must respect us, Wike. As 17 PDP governorship candidates explain reason behind visit to Rivers governor. You'd find other stories on First News. The one about I'm an ex-convict. I was jailed in UK. Burner Boy reveals. Things you may not know about arrested bandits negotiator Tukur Mamu. 532 children abducted, raped, killed in Northeast in 2 years. That's according to the UN. And then bandits release 43 abducted Zamfara worshippers, kill 1. You'd also find a story about Oni of Ife's and strange wife, Queen Naomi reacts to monarch's 4th marriage. Now, these are some of the major stories on the First News.
Interesting development there at the chambers of the Oni of Ife. And moving on to Business Day this morning, away from all of the talk around politics, we have as the major headline, foreign investments in agri sector drops to 5-year low. You'll find the details of that on page 38. Retirees moved 563 billion pension fund into the insurance sector. You want the details of that, you turn to page 2 of Business Day. FMDQ foster financial literacy in younger generation. And we have travelers grown as banks struggle to meet dollar demand. You'll find that on page 2. 2023, we aren't threatened by rivals, says Tinubu. You'll find the details of that on page 37. And Buhari December deadline on security unrealistic. This is coming from expert. If you want the details of that, you will turn to page 2. These are the major headlines on the front page of Business Day. We would now take a short breather. When we return, we'll have our analysts in the studio provide perspective to most of the stories making the headlines on the front page this morning. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back. We are now joined in the studio by our regular analyst, a friend of the house and a former senior colleague, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Mala Nasru Lawal. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Thank you. I was looking at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, and when I saw this number of people lined up, it also reminded me of you. You were, for several years, a recipient of these various awards for meritorious service to this platform, and you have been a pathfinder to some of us, so we will continue to remain grateful for your service to journalism as a whole. Starting with the major story, bandit negotiator Mamu nabbed over 2 billion ransom racketeering. Was there ever a time, I mean, when you saw this story, was there ever a time the DSS had declared this man wanted in Nigeria? Did we needed the drama of him traveling abroad and then being repatriated like the Nnamdi Kanu fiasco and all of the things we were hearing? Would there have been a different way of doing this to get even better result from Mamu rather than just a criminal treatment of some sort? What was your reaction?
Well, there are so many things actually going on in my head right now. One of which is the fact that probably they waited for him to go out so that they will give it the international perspective that they are talking about. But since they said this is something that they are assuring Nigerians that the law will actually take its course, maybe we should allow them to do that. But they need to be transparent about this. Nigerians should be carried along. Right now, what they are saying, you know, some of it is already out there. The people know about it. Some of the things they are saying are quite new. And these are things that I think should be presented before a competent court of law. But Mamu is actually not a stranger to things like this. If I remember correctly, in 2009, he had several run-ins with the Kano state government. At that time, he did a report, I think, about the murder of Sheikh Jafar.
That is in his own newspaper.
In his own newspaper, the Desert Herald, which was, somehow people were saying he was like indicting the then administration of Sheikh Haro in Kano. He also had problems with his own state government, that's Yobe State. He holds the traditional title of Denyen Fika, I think in Potiskum. He had problem with that. And then he also had a problem with the then FCT minister, who is now the present governor of Bauchi State. I think he wanted to publish a book that time saying the rot from within. And then he also had so many, cases of, and he has been arrested severally, but, he has always been released. So this time around, like I said, the government should be come clean about this. If they have evidence against him, let them present it before a court of law and then allow the law to take its course like they promised.
Well, it looks like relatives of some of these captives have a whole different perspective to this issue, because they're seeing like, the whole idea of rescuing their relatives have been sabotaged. What do you think about that?
Yes, like they said, one man's a hero is another man's a villain. The government is saying this is what we have, this is the case we have against him. But, the families of all the victims will feel differently, because whether rightly or wrongly, this man has played a role in the release of their loved ones. And some of them are actually saying that now that you have arrested him, probably you may jeopardize, the fate of those that are still in captivity. Maybe the government should have waited until all these things are over. And I also believe maybe the government should have waited, since at least you have like a window to do all this. Because some of the things that the story is saying, like him scheduling a meeting with some terrorists in Dubai and other places, you should have allowed him to do that, so that at least you get to know the sponsors you are talking about. You get to like arrest all of them at the same time, instead of just like arresting one and then alerting the others in a way, because once they see this happening, they are likely to take to their own heels. They are not likely to remain, in one place, having seen what has happened to somebody that they are in contact with.
Okay, away from that, talking about the awards, which I mentioned in my opening remarks, we saw 45 of them rewarded for integrity, excellence, and more importantly, long service award, like I said earlier, and I would like to reiterate, you were for several times on several events a part of this award. And so sharing your story, what does this make you feel that the company, even after they had left, are continue to keep pace with this tradition?
Well, first of all, I would want to congratulate the recipients of the award, and then the company for also sustaining the tradition, because to be doing this for 20 years, more than 20 years actually, because a company that started in 1998, still doing this, this is likely to encourage staff to put in their best, to be able to do what is expected of them. Because like so many people will say, when you fail to commend people, then you are also like forfeiting your right to condemn them. So, but with things like this, I think the staff are encouraged to always put in their best, and then also the outside world will now see what the daily trust is actually all about.
So how important is it for other outlets to emulate this?
Well, if you want your staff to put in your best, their best, these are some of the things that you should be doing. But Actually, in other companies, I'm not specific about any, but they even find it difficult to do the basics, for their staff, payment of salaries and other entitlements. But for this company, this is something that it is actually well known for. It has been doing it for 22 years now, like I said. So I think the other companies have a lot to actually learn from the media trust.
And moving away from that, we have the charge from the aviation ministers to airline regulatory agencies to sanction airlines that choose to dollarize their tickets. It does appear that a lot of other companies are taking cue from some of the things that are happening. There are hotels in this country where they take dollar fees. In fact, the front desk officer, and I wonder how sophisticated that job is. It's a foreigner. I've seen a number of them in Lagos. I think I can take them there for free if they want me. There are schools that are purportedly designed for diplomats or sort, to whatever standards, and they also take charges in dollar. We are seeing a gradual de-dollarization of the Nigerian economy, something similar to what we see in Zimbabwe. For whatever reason, only the heavens know. How timely is this charge from the aviation minister?
Well, I think this is something that they are only mouthing. I don't think they will be able to follow it up to a logical conclusion, because we are partly responsible for what is happening, because I don't know of any other country that has, up to this number of windows where you can buy or sell foreign currencies. And Nigerians have seen quite clearly that if you do this, maybe you tend to get more value for your own money, because if the government is telling you this is the value of the dollar, maybe around 400 plus, and then somewhere else you can sell the same currency, at a much higher. Right. Honestly, you will want to go for
the higher window.
For the higher window. So it's now time for the government to actually see how it can close all these windows so that we have one single window that everybody will have to do his transaction through. We don't have to wait until the airlines, are doing things that we know so many people are already doing for us to start coming out with things like this.
Interesting. Zainab, before I hand over to you, the ISWAP guys are flexing muscles with the Boko Haram guys. As far as we are concerned, it's the same. It's we versus them. But I don't know how Malam Nasir will react to this. Are we supposed to be happy that this is happening beyond just the reportage? What does this signpost? Is it does it create a sense of a space, within our country that is completely out of the control of government for these people to be taking arms against each other? How should we feel when we see stories like this?
I think we should be both happy and then we should also be worried because the lesser terrorists we have around, the better for all of us. But to see that it's actually one terrorist, having an edge over the other, then we should have a cause to worry, because maybe if they finish with the arrivals, they will not have all the time in this world to concentrate on other soft
and that's
targets.
not good at all.
So I think we should both be happy and then also worried at the same time.
Quite interesting, but we do hope that regardless that everything turns out good. Now let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch. It looks like Pangasin are planning to hold a protest in Lagos because of massive crude theft, and also angry oil workers are blaming soldiers for this. What is your reaction to the story?
Well, I think it's a legitimate thing for them to do, but my problem is how we go about, airing our grievances. There should be several other outlets, through which we can vent our anger and what have you. But, the problem with Nigeria, once you have a problem, you take it to the streets, blocking the roads, for innocent users, doing so many things that the government that you are actually fighting will not even feel it. And already they are talking about we may end up with fuel scarcity. How does that, you know?
Well, that's no good news.
That's not a good news, because seeing what we just came out of, honestly, this should be something that we should worry about.
But staying with the concerns that they raise, the issue of oil theft in Nigeria, I was looking at the statistics that suggest that outside Nigeria, Angola, and one other country that are the major oil exporters, the oil theft, the volume of oil theft in Nigeria is the 4th largest. Are there no truth to what they are saying? How can you coordinate such a massive theft in a market that is so controlled, in a water and airspace that we claim by our regulatory agencies are visible to those agencies that man them? How do we coordinate this amount of theft and yet pretend we do not know how these things are taken away?
Actually, most of the information, you know, that is out there is coming from the government itself. You know, all these issues about fuel theft and what have you. But the fact is, we have all the security agencies, you know, in these places. You have the civil, you have the NSCDC, you have the police, you have soldiers, you know, they're all over. And then things like this continue to happen. So this is why sometimes you tend to give credence to all the allegations that the security agencies are actually part of this. Because unless you are a part of this, then I see how this things like this should keep happening, because you have a responsibility. You are detailed there to protect the pipelines, but we keep having instances of you know, theft and what have you. So honestly, the security agencies should have a rethink, and then the government should also do the needful. Already they are talking about giving out contracts to ex-militants, you know, to secure some of the pipelines, and this has been greeted by, you know, so many controversies, because these people are, well, whether right or wrongly, they are said that they have been said to is it brandish arms, you know, which the governor of Ondo State is already complaining about, saying that if non-state actors should be allowed to carry weapons, then why not Amotekun and other security arrangements that the states are actually coming up with in a way that you know, they will help the government to face
fighting security,
all the insecurity we are facing.
Very interesting. Now, there's a story I would like for you to react to. The one about choir principal allegedly defiled 7 female pupils, absconds. This is somebody that's supposed to be a custodian to these children, and then we're seeing such stories coming from this same person.
Very, very unfortunate. I remember what happened to Hanifa in Kano, and you will think maybe with that people will, you know, have a change of mind before they are even arrested, or before they are even, you know, before they are like out there in the open to know that this is what they are into. But we are talking about 7 pupils. We are not talking about 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, the number is really high. And I wonder how he was able to get away with that, because I don't want to believe he was able to do that, you know, in a single day. It's like he has been doing it over time, but
that also suggests some kind of failure of parenting. I mean, do we even check our pupils when they return from school to see if there are marked differences with the way they left, or they are picking up traits, or withdrawing, you know, something that should prick the parent? It does appear that we had left the grooming of our wards to just the school and the school teachers, and they come back, all we do is serve them food, they go to sleep and prepare them for the next day. Does it not speak to a complete neglect of upbringing to just the school?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a complete neglect, because this is something that has to do with trust. You know, you trust the school enough to be to leave your child in their care, and if things like this are happening, then you also have to like do your own preliminary things. Like, why should you know, take your son or your child to a place that he will be violated. You know, you wouldn't even have the time to do like a follow-up, because some kids, for all you know, may be telling their parents this is what is happening, and some parents will not pay attention to it, and some parents will say, no, maybe you don't want to go to school, and you know, all sorts of things. So it's time for parents to actually be paying attention, like you said, to what is happening in and out of the school, because some of the things that are actually happening do not happen in the school. Maybe he's using the opportunity of this familiarity, you know, with all the pupils, and be perpetrating his crime. But maybe I see it very difficult for a stranger to you know, just do something like this and get away with it without being found out.
Amazing. Still staying with, or rather going back to political discourse, the PDP, as the nation will report it, uncertainty over UHIU's fate as the PDP holds neck. There had been a fought and back. Yesterday we saw the presidential flag bearer pay host to a number of those warring groups. We saw governorship aspirants in about 15 of the states pay visits to Wike, even though he was absent in the reverse visit to the party ticket holder. How do you see this problem playing out? It does appear like the party has resigned to its fate of probably losing out Wike in a bid to move forward. Do you see any resolution in the wind?
Well, from what I can see, they are still like, you know, going after Wike to see if there is a way they can like get him back. Okay. But like you said, honestly, they should act as if he's no longer there, so that they don't get bogged down. Right now, we are like 20 days away from the commencement of campaigns, and you are still talking about reconciliation, when you should actually be having a united front that you should use to face your rivals and for fellow competitors. But what more can they do? The things that people are talking about, IU is partly responsible for some of the things that are happening, because he said it himself that if there is a presidential candidate from the northern part of the country, he will have to quit. And it has happened, but we are
seeing something different.
Yeah, seeing something different. So maybe if he hadn't said that, then maybe he wouldn't have been here, because you know, one thing about people saying all the things they think they can say, that's why people say you should make your words soft and tender, because some days you have to chew them.
Absolutely.
So, maybe that's the case we are facing.
Well, talking about reconciliations, we are seeing that Tinubu is saying we are determined to turn Nigeria's fortune around, and he's also saying no rift between Chair and I.
Well, you know, so many people are saying don't believe anything until it is officially denied. The fact that he's coming out to say, you know, there is no rift, then it suggests that maybe there is something that the public is not yet aware of, and he's trying to like preempt whatever things may get to the public. But the rift is normal in politics. You know, this is democracy. People should be allowed to say their minds, and this may not go down well with some sections of the party. But if you are able to like get the majority on your side and then be able to do this, then fine and good. The problem is for you to have a divided house, and if you go to an election with a divided house, honestly,
calamity awaits.
Yeah.
There's this story from this Nigeria, and it says 2023, 1 million Lagosians abandoned PVC across INEC offices. And we have seen similar stories in the past about how people make all the effort, and we know how difficult it is indeed to get to be registered for these PVCs, only to abandon them. Others only to merely have something as a means of identification, since they neither have a car to require a driver's license, or they do not intend to travel abroad to require an international passport, and getting the national ID card has become an exercise in perpetuity. So it does appear like the voters card is the quickest. They have a different motivation essentially for the voters card. But what can we do to really get these people to take up their civic responsibility, you know, retrieve these cards, and at least participate in our recruitment process?
Well, I remember recently there was this report in the media that some are actually abandoning their PVCs because maybe they have relocated, they have moved out of their former residential areas and things like that. But the electoral body should come out to tell them that you can actually relocate your PVC. The fact that you registered in Lagos does not mean you cannot transfer it to maybe Kano if Kano is where you are now presently residing. So maybe this has to do with
this kind of
information, or and then probably some are no longer interested. Like I said earlier on this show, if people feel they can't like get anything out of the current political system, they may think it's only a waste of time for them to even register and then be going through all the processes only for them to end up with leaders that will act as if they don't care at all.
But, you know, we've seen with how other institutions operate, like the banks. If you go and you request for an ATM, once it's ready, you get all kinds of text message reminding you to pick it up.
Right.
And if you have moved, like you rightly mentioned, they will tell you, you can ask that it be sent to wherever. Some others, for instance, who are in the military or the rest, may have gone for special assignments. And some are students. The schools have been, they probably had registered in the states where they are schooling, and the schools have been shut out for several months, and they are unable to just basically travel to go retrieve. But it does appear that our enlightenment stops at just encouraging people to go and register. When it comes to retrieving these items, we don't see sufficient. I get a mail when I did my transfer, but I wonder what happens to the several other Nigerians who are not even using smartphones. Who, how did they get across? Should we, I mean, shouldn't the electoral body be looking at a different way of really encouraging? Because retrieval may be very useful. If you eventually make up your mind that you are not retrieved, I wonder how you can participate. What can we do to then raise this level of awareness to encourage people to pick up their cards?
I think it all boils down to the problem we have with identity management. In so many clans, you don't even have to get a PVC for you to participate in any election. But if you leave that for Nigerians to decide, you know, you may end up with people doing it multiple number of
times and different locations.
So maybe that's what we should start focusing our attention to, how we will be able to vote in elections without necessarily owning all these PVCs, because the more PVCs we print, the more money we spend, and right now we don't even have that luxury, you know, to be able to be spending money on things that in the end may not be of any use. So I think the government should focus its attention on, you know, having a system where Nigerians that are eligible, you know, that are of voting age, will be able to vote without necessarily going through all the processes of acquiring voters card.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up here.
True.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure as always. We would now take a short break. When we return at the top of the hour, the show continues. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that